Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our EDC coffee chat this morning. We are really excited to have our partner on the Center of Inclusive Entrepreneurship. We have Rick and then also Rick Dickinson and Micah Jeanette and Michelle, who will be joining us today, Michelle Pruden. So just a few items before we kick it off. If you'll please try to keep yourself on mute so we don't get any inadvertent background noise, that would be very appreciated. And if you want to ask a question, please just either put your question in the chat or raise your hand. And we like this to be as interactive as possible. So with that, I'm going to let Rick take it away and share with everybody what the Center of Inclusive Entrepreneurship is up to lately. Go ahead, Rick. Thanks for joining.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much for having us on. Very much appreciate that. And I will get my slides shared. Let's see, I want to go to full screen. Okay, are you guys seeing a nice full screen now?
Yes, we are.
Fabulous. And then hide the floating meeting controls, all the things. All right, so we're really excited about this program that we have coming up starting in March. That is our Green Equity Accelerator. And I'll explain what that is in a minute. But first, I want to jump straight to thanking our partners on this particular project who made this possible. In particular, BECU gave us a very large grant that allowed us to run this program. And then Commerce gave us an additional grant, which allowed us to provide seed grants to participants. So those are our funding partners on this. And then our collaborators on this are EDC Team Jefferson, North Olympic Development Council, RDI, which is an organization out of Oregon that we've been partnering with. And then finally, Sea Change is the one I'll highlight right there at the bottom. We're using their curriculum for this. This is a kind of a new venture for us to use that curriculum. And then, as always, we like to mention that we are a part of the SBDC. We're a subrecipient of the Small Business Development Center in Washington, and that allows us to do our work here on the peninsula. So,
Rick, just really quickly, I think it's important to highlight that your focus is really on startup businesses versus SBDC typically works with businesses that have been in existence for a while. So that's kind of the differentiation of the two organizations. And we kind of, at the EDC, we do kind of all of it. And frequently we work with larger businesses, but if we have a business that needs a lot of startup individualized support, we often then refer them to CIE. But that's how we kind of divide our work up.
Yeah, and in addition to that, as you know, it says here on this slide, micro businesses in early stage. We also want to emphasize that we prioritize underserved communities. We are very much an equity-focused organization. So anybody who is further from privilege and has more challenges to starting a business is who we really prioritize in our work. Early stage micro businesses, which is micro enterprises, which is typically 5 or fewer, sometimes 10 or fewer, depending on whose definition you're using, 5 or fewer employees. And then because we're often working with low income or underserved folks, we make it a big priority that the businesses that we help start aren't going to get them just to a survival, but to thriving. So we really focus on how do we help you build a business model and a business that will help you achieve financial self-sufficiency and build generational wealth for your family. That's a big priority of ours. And then we also do this not just, frankly, not just to benefit the individual entrepreneurs, but because when you help the least build wealth, that is really building wealth that helps grow our community wealth. And that wealth, by and large, is going to stay in the community. It's not extractive. It doesn't go off to the big corporations, in Seattle or elsewhere. That money really recirculates around the community. And that leads to that final bullet point, is we're always thinking with systemic solutions. How is what we do affecting the entire system that we're in? And that really is why we also are thinking about, and a real important value for us is the environment and environmental impacts, and how to create really businesses that do good for the environment rather than are purely extractive. So while that is not one of our requirements, it is something that is always top of mind. And that is why we are so excited to be talking about our Green Equity Accelerator. So, and a little bit of history, I think, about CIE. For those of you who don't know, we've had a presence on the peninsula since 2015, when we first partnered with the Nature Conservancy to run a triple bottom line business competition called Coastworks. We ran that for 4 years. And so all of the businesses that came out of that were really focused on an environmental benefit. And so by coming back around and having this Green Equity Accelerator now is really coming full circle with where we started on the peninsula. And then we've had a full-time presence on the peninsula since 2019, when I started as a business advisor. And now, as Colleen mentioned, we also have Micah Jonnet, who is our other business advisor, and Michelle Pruden, who is our community engagement coordinator. And she has come on to manage all of our partnerships, because we could not do the work we do without our partners. And so if you are somebody who would like to be a referral partner or a partner of any kind with us, please reach out to Michelle, hit her up in the chat. All right, so for today, what we want to talk about is kind of the general concept of what a green equitable economy could look like, and provide some interesting examples. And then to introduce our Green Equity Accelerator program that we'll be rolling out. Well, the application period is already open, and we'll be rolling this out in March. So first, I want to kind of ask the question, what is the purpose of the economy? And I think that a lot of times we think to create more money, to create more jobs. And while that's true, in some ways, that's really the means to an end. The purpose of the economy, as we view it, is we like to think about a values-driven economy. What are the values and what are the goals, and what are the means? And so really the purpose of an economy is to create a high quality of life and a really rich culture. That's what we really want, right? To live well. And those things are provided by some of these factors. So also, healthy, safe people, a healthy natural environment, a good education and a workforce, good governance. And this second set of elements, they help support the higher quality of life, but they also have some intrinsic economic value in and of themselves. For example, education and work support the ability to earn an income, and they can also bring meaning and richness into your life. So they sort of straddle both sides of this means versus goals line. And then then the final thing is really the economic growth, that economic engine. It really is just the means. It is not the goal in and of itself. And so this is, if you think in terms of a values-driven economy, this is kind of what shapes our thinking. Again, kind of with this systems thinking approach to the economy. So but an all too common scenario is very different. It's just a purely extractive model. We take something, we make something, and then we have garbage at the end of it. And we extract economic value at every stage, but ultimately it's undercutting this quality of life. And especially as as we're becoming a more and more resource constrained planet, frankly, this is becoming unsustainable. And so there are lots of models, lots of better approaches that have been put forward. I'm going to show you one that's called the donut approach that I think is at least a good way of thinking about how we might create the next economy, which will have long-term sustainability for us. So there's the concept of there are all these overshoots: climate change, ocean acidification, chemical pollution, any of those things that are on the outside where we've overshot. But on the inside, the social foundation where there are shortfalls, we have, lack of food, poor healthcare, education deficiencies, social equity issues, those things. So what we want to try to do is find this middle ground, this safe and just space for humanity, as it says. And by the way, this is from an economy called Kate Raworth, an economist named Kate Raworth in the UK has put this out. She published a book in 2017 that you can look up. But this is it's like, how do we find this middle ground, this middle space, where we can keep the balance between the economic activities impacting the planet and our ultimately our own health and well-being, but also not penalizing those with less, and creating social issues. So that's kind of one way of thinking about it. And it's what it's going to take is a lot of innovation and a lot of imaginative thinking about how do we look at our economy different. The other model I want to just briefly touch on is this is based on the WealthWorks framework, and it talks about there are many forms of wealth, or many capitals. So there are individuals, there's intellectual capital, there's natural capital, obviously our environment, there's our built environment, financial, political, social, cultural. All of these really work together to create that end goal that we were talking about earlier. So just a couple different ways of thinking systemically about how can we create the most healthy, happy, and just society from an economic point of view. All right, so what's the opportunity here? If we want to build better economies, what's important? Where does the community find meaning and connection? The experience of the pandemic and related events has us thoughtful about economy building. How do we want to rebuild? We want to rebuild in the same way or differently? If differently, how? And so we think that this questions is adapted from the Well-Being Economy Alliance, and we really think these questions point to being driven by values, looking for economic solutions that will carry everyone along and get communities to the goals that we talked about above. And we can use these values to help make decisions about how to use our scarce resources. Are we attracting an outside business versus investing in local business? Are we investing in one sector versus another, which could benefit more people on the economic margins? Are we creating more low-wage jobs or fewer higher-wage jobs? There's lots of ways to do this work, and probably, ideally, it's going to be a mix of all of the above. So there's no right answers to these, but it's really just a set of questions to be thinking about as we begin to build economies, and especially as we focus on our local economy here on the North Peninsula, where we are somewhat isolated, have to be relatively independent in some ways, especially when the supply chain vanishes, as we learned in COVID. So just thinking about what is the approach we want to take. And I feel like, let's see. All right. So, and in that we focus, as you know, we focus on small businesses. And I just want to talk a little bit about the importance of small businesses, especially here on the peninsula. So most businesses in our region have 9 or fewer employees. We've got Jefferson and Callam County shown here, and you can see it's right around 40% of our businesses are 1 to 4 employees. And then another, 27 to 28%, depending on the county, are 9 or fewer. So it's really critical that we focus on these small businesses. And if there's going to be a real sort of sea change in how we do our economy, that's where it's really going to start, from the grassroots up. There are approximately a few over 5,000 businesses in our 2-county region, and this is how they break down. So, and then recently, the NODC, the North Olympic Development Council, they did their strategic plan, the SEDS, and one of their findings was that in their meetings with community members around both counties, that we're really looking for local businesses to take the lead on creating more social equity, more environmental sustainability, and being more self-sufficient and resilient. And we really agree with that. We think that business is a powerful engine for creating these changes. Colleen. Oh, you're on mute.
Here we go. Thanks. Hey, so can you go back to that last slide for a second, Rick?
Yeah. Does that?
Yeah. Okay. So what I think you're probably getting data. What's that from? Employment Security Department?
Could be.
The number. Yeah. So they don't report, obviously, self-proprietors. And so if Department of Revenue, if you go to their reports, they say we have 6,700 businesses in Callam County, over 6,700. But ESD says we have around 2,800. So if you add all of those, folks that work for themselves or, have intermittent employees, the number of businesses that we have that are 1 to 4 employees is by and large the most that are in Callam and in Jefferson as well. I just wanted to bring that up because
it's even higher than what I'm showing here, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I did not generate these numbers, but I did think, wow, those don't seem high enough. So
right.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah. And also the folks that we're going to be targeting by and large with this Green Equity Accelerator are going to be right in that space, 1 to 2 entrepreneurs starting a business, or slightly more mature businesses that are ready to take a next step.
And so I would say that this isn't based on the number of businesses. This is based on where do the employees fall. So because I've done very detailed analysis on this, and we have very, very few businesses that have more than 20 employees. So what I'm saying, like it's probably 2% of the businesses have more than 20 employees, but this is the number of, a representation of the employees in our county. 10.8% of them, as an example, are within businesses that are 500 plus employees.
Right.
I just wanted to clarify that.
And also, I do have Actually, let me open up that chat. Uh, I'll just put the data came from Database USA through
Uh-huh.
So
Yep.
that's where
And
that.
they source through ESD. And so
Okay,
they don't pick up, MC doesn't pick up the sole props.
got it. Cool. Awesome. Good to know. All right. So even more in reinforcing my point more
Yeah.
is that it really needs to come from these really small businesses, or what's going to really be able to provide this fundamental transformation of the economy. So how do we get there? How do businesses do this? And what we like to talk about is a social enterprise. So a social enterprise is really a business. It could be anything. It can be a nonprofit, but thinking in terms of, it's a business that looks at both the financial sustainability and environmental sustainability. You can't have, unless you're a nonprofit, you can't really just purely be focused on environmental sustainability, or you go out of business. So it's got to be a balance. And sometimes we talk about a triple bottom line, which is the financial bottom line, the environmental bottom line, and the social bottom line. Really looking at all three of those. For the purposes of this, we're looking at all three, but in terms of the social is from primarily going to be looking at who the entrepreneurs are, prioritizing underserved entrepreneurs, and then providing an environmental benefit. Social benefit as well is fine, but the fundamental requirement is the environmental benefit. So, but these can be for or nonprofit. And of course, in Washington State, we have the unique designation of a social purpose corporation, where you can have equal weight for your social or environmental bottom line versus your financial bottom line. But that's what this is what we're hoping to sort of seed into the economy, is some of these social enterprises that are looking at this. And so you think about kind of the spectrum of how to get to a better, more sustainable business. At the far end is just purely like profit at the expense of society and environment, really no payback. What we call externalities are not being accounted for. Then less bad is, well, okay, we're going to mitigate those impacts. We're going to donate to something, 1% for the economy, or we're going to do carbon offsets, or so it's not real. It's trying to compensate for, which is great, but it's not really changing the model. Then you go to the good, which is you generate profit that does create some social and environmental benefit. You do both. You generate profit and you do some social environmental benefit of some kind. And then the holy grail of this is that your actual business is predicated on social and environmental benefit, and you only get you only earn a profit. You cannot earn a profit without doing social and environmental benefit, and that's really the holy grail, the thing that we're always thinking, what could that be? What could that be? What kinds of solutions could folks come up with? And for us, it's very exciting because you get to go out and really reinvent the wheel. Actually, it's time to reinvent this wheel, and be creative and be an inventor. So a couple of different strategies that we like to think about that are, so there's this concept of leakage, where people buying goods and services from outside the region or imported into the region. Could those be created or provided locally and not have that economic value leaking out of our economy and into other locations? Why is it good to reduce leakage? There's environmental benefits. There's local business opportunities to create jobs and increase dollars circulating locally. Greater resilience, which we learned about during COVID. And so one way to do this is with import substitution. So creating and selling products and services here that we currently are accessing outside the community. One easy example of that is local agriculture versus importing everything from California or Chile, or wherever Safeway gets it. So that's just an example. So and another thing is to focus on local ownership. Local ownership keeps wealth local. Because if someone local is running a business, then they are spending those dollars locally. They're paying their rent locally. They are attending our local civic events and entertainment, and it just, so all that money circulates many more times through the local economy. I've heard different numbers about 7x or whatever, but I won't get stuck on that. But it clearly has a hugely beneficial impact. And so whereas somebody like a Walmart, very little of that money stays in our community. There's a small portion of that money that goes to those generally minimum wage jobs, and they respend their money in the economy, but by and large, that's going out of the community. And then obviously one of the largest extractive mechanisms in an economy is mortgage payments that go to banks elsewhere. But the more that we can have these local businesses, local ownership, then the stronger and more thriving our local economy will be. And another benefit of that I see is that when you have a lot of really interesting and unique local businesses, tourists want to come visit. They think, what a cool place. I want to be there. I want to go there. And that pulls more money into the local economy as well. So yeah. Finally, we have this asset-based approach. So it's really just a mindset shift. It's focusing on what exists here more than on what's missing. And also kind of looking for what are those assets that we're not really thinking about right now? What are the forest products that we're not considering, and seeing how local people can make money by foraging mushrooms, for example, in those intact forests, or how can we better utilize our fishery, and instead of all of that money getting siphoned off and wholesaled out to the city immediately, how can we keep some of that fish here and sell it locally and generate an interesting seafood culture? These are just different ideas, different ways of thinking. Like, what are our assets that we're not using well or could be used better? And then really building local supply chains, thinking, collaborating to say, what are the products and businesses that folks want that we actually could be providing locally, and find the entrepreneurs who are willing to jump into those opportunities. So a lot of what we talk about it really is collaborative. We want to have these community conversations to generate ideas of, like, what would we want to see in our local economy, and then have somebody who's interested in being an entrepreneur raise their hand and say, hey, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then they can come to CIE or SBDC and get the help they need to actually make that happen. So those are some of the approaches. I have some examples of some businesses that are doing really interesting and innovative things that create environmental sustainability or divert waste, and create a really beneficial product. So here's an example from the south coast of Oregon, Seacoast Compost. They gather fish, dairy, and sawmill waste that would otherwise go to landfills. And they get these waste streams from 3 different industries, and they create a really, really rich product that people can put in their gardens or farmers can use on their farms to then grow food. So something that would have just been going to the dump is now creating food or flowers or whatever, but it's being generative rather than just waste. So we're closing the loop. And it's got both community and environmental benefit, improving soil for local farms, and it builds lots of different forms of wealth. If you think back to that earlier Wealth Works slide, three of those were natural, intellectual, and financial wealth. So thinking in terms of how many different kinds of wealth can this one business build. So that's one example. And another Oregon example is EcoSource Native Seed and Restoration. So they are so there's a need for protecting native species and reestablishing native species for ecological restoration, preventing erosion, lots of different reasons. So there's a need for these seeds to be available. Typically, their customer tends to be governmental organizations or folks that are doing ecological restoration, but they're growing the seeds that they need to provide that service, and so they're creating a business out of the efforts to provide ecological improvements. So it's mostly from large government contracts on federal land, such as along highways, where a lot of it is. And there's just a lack of native seed options that are appropriate for the climate and that promote ecological restoration. So this business is creating additional income streams for small farmers in the area who are often low income, and it's so creating individual and financial capital, and also local ownership and equitable livelihood. So it's really EcoSource, they contract with a bunch of small farmers to aggregate this and then get the seeds where they need to be. So they're really leveraging and creating a bunch of small businesses through this one. And it obviously, and it finally benefits the ecosystem restoration. And it exemplifies land stewardship values and living in harmony with the land. So that's the capital, cultural capital as well. All right. Next example is Western juniper, also another Oregon example. So Western juniper it's a native tree in Oregon, but it's kind of taken over and it's overgrown due to mostly land use and management practices that have allowed juniper to expand their range and alter the ecosystem, partly because they use a lot of groundwater resources. So they're actually depleting the groundwater, which then prevents other trees from moving in. So it's this reinforcing loop that's happening down there. So there's a need to sort of remove some of this juniper from the landscape. So Western juniper is working on expanding the market demand for juniper to increase opportunities for loggers, juniper mills, and processors, and doing it through local ownership and local wealth connections. So the target group is the broader community, local small businesses, sawmills, loggers, but the goal is really ecological restoration and economic benefit, and aligning those, and it ends up creating individual capital, natural capital, financial capital, local ownership, and improved livelihoods. So and creating this industry that is also can generate, in some ways it's also working within the tourist economy by generating products that would be of interest to people who are visiting the region. So all right, another example, and I'm just good, I'm skip, there we go. So Farm Power, this is a group up in Linden, and I am hoping The conversion of the PowerPoint looks like it wiped out my video link. So we won't be able to watch that video, but what I will just do a brief description. Basically, there was a lot of manure waste from dairies up in Linden, Washington. And so Farm Power said, why don't we take all that dairy waste, put it into a biodigester, capture the methane and turn it into energy and fertilizer. So from what was a waste stream, they're now generating two beneficial products. They're converting the methane into power, and then the waste is turned into a compost. So that is another model where, again, thinking in terms of the more good, their entire business model is based on something that is providing environmental benefit. They can't, it doesn't work without environmental benefit happening. And I'm most disappointed about my Alaskan brewing. Sorry, I did not double check that these links were going to work. There's a really great video. Micah, if you could find that link and drop it in the chat so people can watch it on their own. But really, it's sort of a similar concept of Alaska Brewing is closing the loop on their waste stream. So when you're brewing beer, you use a lot of grain, and you end up with a lot of spent grain. And so they have taken that spent grain and have turned it into a fuel source that actually, because you're in a brewing facility, you're also using a ton of energy. You're boiling and cooking, and there's just a lot going on. And so they're turning that spent grain into fuel that then brews more beer for them. The other byproduct they have is a lot of carbon dioxide, which used to just off gas into the environment. They're now capturing that and using it to carbonate their beer rather than off gassing and then buying others. So they're experiencing major cost savings all throughout their business model that also benefit the environment. So these are just some of the kind of innovative, interesting ways people are saying, hey, we can provide environmental benefit and be a more efficient business or create a brand new business that wasn't there before. So I'm going to take a breath and open it up to everybody in the room. Can you think of any other examples of green equity businesses? Or can you think of opportunities, especially here on the peninsula? Anything that you've thought of, or this is maybe sparked? I see Patricia's saying, why don't we have pop-up crab stands like lobster pop-ups? Yeah, I love Hamma. But yeah, you're right. Nothing on the North Peninsula where the Dungeness crabs come from, which, I mean, Dungeness crab is famous, and yet we're not doing anything with it. Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts about that? And again,
we did have one in Squim. Trying to remember the name of it, but it was like at the corner of Squim Bay Road and Washington Street. We had one there. It wasn't a pop-up stand, but a retail selling local. And I guess it closed. Obviously, you got to have enough demand and the right marketing and all that kind of thing. Location.
Yeah, all that stuff. And again, that's kind of what we're here for, is to provide any business technical assistance that would be useful. But sometimes a business model just doesn't work for whatever reason. All right, Patricia, we're counting on you.
There's one, I realize I don't have my video on. Sorry about that. There's one that I'm particularly interested in. there's a new, well, it's not new, but a product that the state is just becoming aware of, called humus soil. And it is a process that you can take the waste product on your own property, so your own farms, your own slash piles on your own property, and instead of composting it, it's a fermentation process. And so the outcome of it is much better soil for regenerative farming. It doesn't emit carbon as it creates this new type of soil. And so the catalysts that are used are proprietary, but a small business owner could handle that for people that have acreage and have these typical composting processes, that this is a much better process. And so it takes about 6 months for it, and it has to be covered while it's happening. But this is something that, you know, if you didn't even have to do the work and you just have the composting, you could create some type of agreement where you'd go around and handle this for people that have the land.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I can share information about it. There's lots of, they just presented to the United Nations last month.
Cool. Yeah, I would love it. Could you forward that to me? That'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Vermiculture is a really good income stream, because it's pretty easy to get it up and rolling. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Micah. Micah just dropped the Alaska brewing video in the chat. Do
you want to try to get that going? And
no, I think actually I probably ought to keep rolling. We need to get to talking about the actual accelerator, but I will just say that we do have several businesses on the peninsula that actually are doing some of this work. One that you're probably familiar with is Goodness Tea, Shaylee Evans' business, where she's doing regenerative farming practices, and all of her packaging is biodegradable, compostable, so that there's no plastic involved. So she's a really great example of a business that's really taking all these things into consideration. And so I do think there are a lot of opportunities here on the peninsula. So we want to help folks take advantage of those opportunities. So our Green Equity Accelerator is, we've partnered with Sea Change, which is so this is what they do. They're a social enterprise accelerator. And they've done these accelerators all around the country. And so we're adopting their curriculum, which is 14 modules that really dig deep into how do you do this kind of work? How do you start this kind of a business? And so, we're going to help social entrepreneurs develop their financial sustainability, determine their measurable impact, and just become part of that, their entrepreneurial ecosystem. We are focusing it is prioritizing pre-venture early stage, but we also know that there are some businesses that are already out there that need a boost, and that this could really help them level up. So it's going to be open to really a range of businesses. So the process looks like this. There's an application that date is, the application deadline is February the 10th. And we're looking for both mentors and entrepreneurs. We're also looking for there's a number of options for folks who aren't going to be starting a business to participate. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But one of those roles is as a mentor. So really, I mean, eligibility is pretty wide open. I've talked about, the different kinds of businesses that it can be. We will be prioritizing, as part of the equity component, we will be prioritizing more challenged entrepreneurs, those who are furthest from privilege and most economically or otherwise challenged. And those applications are due on the 10th. And then the actual training is from March to May. And like I said, it's 14 modules, and it includes, it's really a flipped classroom model where the content is presented ahead of time. And we're using this platform called Thinkific, so the students can get in, do the work, and then the meeting sessions are reviewing it and going over it and discussing it. So there's the training, and then there's also one-on-one advising that goes along with this, as well as mentorship. And we're really working, and this is part of Michelle's focus, is to build this network. We're really looking to build a network of entrepreneurs, and we are rolling out a brand new mentorship platform called 10,000 Cups. I don't know if you've heard of that or are familiar with that concept, but we are. So what we're going to have is all of our entrepreneurs will be in the 10,000 Cups platform, and then anybody who wants to potentially sign up as a mentor and get matched can join, and just it's going to be mix and match. And we're, because it's sort of a closed environment, it's very safe. We want to make sure that people feel safe with their mentors. We considered some other options that were just really wide open, and felt like this was something that was more contained, just to our region, was better. And we'll eventually be opening it up as well to our other regions, where I didn't talk about how CIE is now in 4 regions across the state. But anyway, but a fairly closed, safe space for mentorship. And then we will have a pitch event in June. And for the pitch event, we're looking for people to sort of evaluate the pitches, be pitch judges. And then if an entrepreneur goes through that whole process and they've really developed a robust business plan, they are able to get some green impact capital of up to $5,000. And we have 10 of these available. And so that's what's exciting about that, is to actually be able to put some wind in the sails of these ideas, and get people going. So, and I've already been sort of alluding to this, but how can you participate? Become a volunteer advisor. You can be. So we're looking for subject matter experts to go deeper into some of these topics. You can do one module or all 14 if you're really ambitious. You'll be paired with another volunteer, roughly 3 hours in session, plus homework review, plus prep time per module. We provide the lesson plan, the facilitator guide, sample slide decks, etc. We get you all set up. It's really, but there is this time investment too. And I think it's really rewarding. Obviously, I do it for a living, but it's really rewarding to work with these entrepreneurs and get to play in the sandbox a little bit, even though you're not going to be able to jump in and do it, because you've got a day job, right? So and then we are looking for mentors who have more broad business knowledge, that can help entrepreneurs with kind of their decision making, their planning, their ideas, refining, and can do some homework review and also share their network. Right, that's one of the real benefits of a mentor, is that mentors, you have a network already built in. You're like, oh, if you talk to this person, they could answer these questions for you. So, and we'll have a mentor match event right at the beginning of the program. And then mentors will meet regularly throughout the program on their own schedule. And we'll provide the matching and a getting started kit and ongoing guidance. And you can see the link there at the bottom is where you can sign up. And Michelle, if you want to drop that link into the chat, that would be great. And then so the other way you can participate, obviously, is being one of the entrepreneurs. And this is obviously the best way to participate. The one we're most excited about, and also the one that we're really, recruiting for right now. We're looking for those folks that have the energy and the drive and the vision to really jump in and create a new enterprise that can create green equity on the peninsula. So we have some upcoming informational Zoom meetings. The first one is this Saturday at 10:30, and we tried to stagger days and times a little bit to fit a bunch of different schedules. But if you know of anybody who might be interested, or if you're interested, reach out. But these are the times that we're going to be having available. And then finally, we will also be doing a community conversation at Fin River over in Chimacum on Sunday, February 5th from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. This will be in person. There'll be refreshments, and we'll really dig, kind of make it more of a conversational networking, little breakout groups, just to really, kind of get the juices rolling. And so it'd be a really great place if you are interested in participating as a mentor or a facilitator or an entrepreneur. This would be a great place to come and just really get the feel of it and meet some of the people who might also be participating. And with that, I wanted to put our contact information up here. You can reach out to any of us about this, although really Michelle is our point person. And so most likely direct anything to her. And I'm going to run back through the chat.
Erica had some questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Erica, do you want to ask those?
Thank you, Colleen. And thanks, Rick. This is great. I'm a fan, and this is just another example of why, but wondering if you guys are going to have coin investors at the pitch event, or if this is, if it's going to become, of course, they might be able to be joining, and or they could join on their own, but is this going to be a formal coin lion event too?
It's not going to be a formal Coin Lion event, but we are definitely going to be outreaching it to them.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
The other thought I had, I didn't put it in the chat yet, but I'm wondering if climate adaptation businesses would qualify, not necessarily doing anything that is kind of regenerative or whatever, but is addressing climate change to a certain.
I guess give me an example.
I'm thinking of like contractors that might be working to help people relocate, that focus on addressing site problems for, site condition problems for people who live on the coast or something like that.
I don't think that's really the focus as much. Yeah, I think it's really more on what's being generative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
Good to know.
Yeah. And then, and Rebecca prompted me to also do a pitch for PTAC. And yes, once you get a business going, especially like, for instance, that seed business that I talked about in Oregon that's doing the native seeds, clearly they're contracting with the government. If there's something where a business idea, in fact, I would say go to Rebecca now and kind of brainstorm what opportunities are there with government contracts for environmental mitigation type things. I think that's really a great idea to think in terms of how, why not have a business here where you could contract statewide with Washington? That would be fabulous. All right, I'm kind of glancing through the chat. Colleen, can you give me the chat afterwards so I can respond to people? Okay, that would be great. Hi, Brad. I see Brad on there. And lithium battery recycling and abandoned car pickup. Awesome. Oh, and more new messages. Oh, thanks, Erica. Awesome. Oh, and Carol, yeah, would love to connect. So yeah, that's the program. We're very excited about it. Again, the application deadline is February the 10th. Application materials are on our website at cie-nw.org. There's a green, borderline obnoxiously green banner at the top of our website. Just make sure you can't miss it. You click on that and you can get all the information you need. And really, probably our biggest ask is just to spread the word. Tell people about it. Bring your ideas. Come join us at Finn River. Always a lovely venue. And yeah, just would love to get as much community input and involvement as possible in whatever capacity that looks like for you. And look at that, Colleen, 8:58.
Well, that's great. I just wanted to mention that great presentation, Rick. But our Boost grant, where businesses can get free bookkeeping support, marketing support from professionals, and also legal support, is open until this Friday. And we'd like to see some more. Jefferson County has had tons of applicants. And so we'd like to see some more Callam County applicants, but yeah, it's going really well. And also we got the bookkeeping classes started in partnership with Peninsula College. They've got those going. We got 20 bookkeepers that are taking classes. So that's pretty exciting. That'll start their own businesses and be out there to help businesses that need bookkeeping services.
Quick question on that, Colleen.
Yeah.
Is it still open? So I have a new client that just walked in the door, very experienced in marketing. Is there still an opportunity for them to jump in and be a provider?
Yes, for RFPs. Yeah, the RFP is still available. Have them email Lori and she can send the RFP to them.
Okay, great.
Everything is going to close out on Friday.
Okay.
So people still have, I think we've got plenty of attorneys that have responded to the RFP, and we've got quite a few marketers that have, and then also, but openings for businesses. The bookkeeping Boost portion is now closed, but yeah, it's things are moving quickly. And we want to help as many businesses as we can. And again, this is for underserved businesses. So we are looking at supporting folks like single moms and folks that just, can't afford this kind of thing on their own. And focusing a lot on the Forks area because their poverty rate is over 30%.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thanks again, Colleen. We really appreciate being able to have this time and make this presentation. So,
yeah, and I see Georgina says Peninsula College is looking for accountants to help mentor the bookkeeping students, and I believe that's a paid position. So, yeah, I did find one person who is interested. Yeah.
Yeah. You need a side gig, Micah?
Well, it's specifically on QuickBooks. So, helping we need some folks that their full-time gig is QuickBooks. And I know Micah's more higher level accounting. He's still helpful.
He does our QuickBooks training, but
do you, Micah? I didn't know you did that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to do QuickBooks for a 10 million a month company.
Okay. That's great. That's great. Well, so think about it.
You've
Don't
always
tell
got
Mike
me as
Skinner
a
I said
backup,
that.
Colleen.
What's that?
It's just, I might be able to help with some of that.
Okay.
QuickBooks training too.
Okay. So Rob DeCou's email is there in the chat. If you want to give him a quick email.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get off my phone. I'm on
Okay.
mobile Zoom right now.
Oh,
so
sure. Okay.
hey,
All right.
I got a question about that other grant about the flooding.
The Northwest Washington Disaster Grant that's open for this week and next week.
Okay, so and I can access it from your website.
Yes, and it's also available to nonprofits. If you had a reduction in activity and you're located in Callam County, so it's for profits and nonprofits. If your, say, business declined due to the flooding activity, definitely businesses in Callam Bay and CQ and Forks. But some businesses in the Port Angeles area were affected because of that mudslide. They weren't getting clients or business happening because of the lack of clients coming from the West End. So if you can make that case and you had a reduction in activity, you also qualify.
Well, okay, I'm gonna have to look at it now. Because remember I asked you about if it caused damage to the records because the roof leaked. And you said that
Yep.
might be eligible.
Yes, if absolutely. If you had physical damage, that absolutely qualifies.
Okay, but would the owner of the building or would the lease